The best way to play chess is by playing every single phase of the game in a specific way. For example, in the opening phase, you have to play only book moves. For example, in this position, my opponent went e4. Now you can reply with anything that you like. You can go for the Scandinavian, you can go for the Sicilian defense, you can go like me, c6 the Karl Khan defense, you can go for symmetrical e5, you can do whatever you want. But make sure that your opening is being played perfectly. What I mean by perfectly is you have to play book moves. And what I mean by book moves is this. I'm just going to show you what I know. When my opponent goes e4, and what I mean by I know the Karl Khan defense, that means that I know every single variation of the Karl Khan. For example, I go here c6. I know that he can go d4. Most of the time they go d4, and I go d5. There is the exchange variation when he develops his knight and I develop my knight, and we continue the game. He can go e4, and I go c6, d4, d5, and I know that there's the advanced variation. I put my bishop out. He goes here with a knight. I continue my pawn chain, and I get ready to push this pawn or go knight d7, and we continue the game. I know in this position, e4, c6, d4, then d5. I know that he can go knight c3, and when I take, he can take with the knight, and I can go here. He goes back. Then I go back to bishop g6, and then he starts attacking my bishop. Then I go here. He attacks my bishop one more time. I go back. He goes bishop d3. Then I have to take. Then queen takes. And the thing is, you have to understand your opening, and so you have to know the opening book moves. Okay. And this is what you have to do. Also, what I know about this, e4, c6, d4, d5, I know the fantasy variation, where he goes here. Now I take, and in this variation, many people with the black pieces do something bad and blunder. But the best move here, I know that's e5. And if he blundered and took this, most of the black players take the queen, which is really, really bad. The best move is to go queen h4 check. You're threatening to win the pawn. And if he tried to block you like this, he loses the rook very fast. So this is what I mean by I know the opening. Okay, so you have to know your opening. For example, with the white pieces, you like to go for like e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, then bishop here, bishop c4. This is called the Italian game. You just love the Italian. So if you love the Italian, you have to understand and know every variation of that opening. Exactly like how I know every variation of the Karl Khan. And the reason why I memorize book moves and I only play book moves is to get better accuracy at the opening. My accuracy right now at my opening is 92%. 92% accuracy on the opening phase. For me, this is for me. So for you, you have to check your opening accuracy. Sometimes I get it more than 92%. For example, in this game that I played, you can just point or click on the opening. Like when you finish the game review, just click on it, and it will show you the accuracy. My accuracy in the opening was 97.7% accuracy in the opening. Now, why is that? Let me show you. Let me show you the real game. This was a blitz game, but we don't care. Let's go e4, c6, and I know also in this variation they go here. I push d5, they take, and it transposes to the same variation I showed you earlier. I went d5, takes, then he went d4. Okay, I developed my knight, and now he develops his bishop and pin my knight. Now, I've seen this multiple times because I studied this. Studied the opening book moves, so I memorized them all. In this position, I know that I have to pin him to pin his knight, because a really annoying move. Let's say, for example, I went knight f6 for some reason. He can go knight e5, pinning my knight, and so the knight is pinned by the bishop. Okay, so if he takes with the knight, I take back with the pawn. He takes with the bishop. I block, and I lose the rook. So this is not good. So I have to stop it. So this is why I went bishop g4. Now he went here. Now I've seen this move also, because if I want to go back to h5, he can go g4, and when I go back to g6, he can continue with his plan by going knight to e5, threatening to take, and I lose my rook, also my queen as well. So this is very bad. So what I know, when he pushes here, I have to take. Okay, so now he takes. So now the best move to the best way to play your opening, even though you don't know the opening book moves or the opening theory of the opening, so it's okay, but just make reasonable moves. In this position, would you please tell me what is the most reasonable move for black? You can do multiple things. If you chose e6, it's good. If you chose knight f6, it's good. If you went a6, it's a little bit inaccuracy because if your opponent wants to take, just let him take and you can take back. So don't waste a move. So this would be a waste of time. This would be a waste of time. This would be it's some kind of variation of the Karl Khan. But this is what you have to make. You have to make reasonable moves in the opening. I decided to go knight f6, developing my knight. He castled. And so, for me, he's getting rapid development. He's going to put his rook here, so I have to take action. Therefore, I went e6. The reason I went for e6 in the opening, I want to open up for the bishop. I want to open up for the bishop on e7 or on d6, sometimes here, okay? And now he went here with the bishop, pinning me. Now, if I went with my memorization, okay, I know the theory maybe to go bishop d6. So most of the time, bishop d6, adding pressure on the king side. Okay, but if I went now with my plan, I lose the game. I lose the game somehow because if bishop takes, and if he takes with the pawn, I'm going to have a weak king and a very bad pawn structure for the endgame. And if he goes here, queen takes, pawn takes, I'm going to have still the same pawn structure, which is bad. Even though I open up a line for against his king, but his king is really safe. So this is, you have to understand something about the positional gameplay. You have to have a solid pawn structure. Okay, so don't allow your opponent to go takes, you take here. Or even if you decided not to trade queens, bishop takes and pawn takes, don't have this pawn structure and go for the endgame, because the endgame is going to be a little bit harder for you, not for your opponent. Okay, so what I decided to do is to not go for the memorization of bishop d6 because it's a memorization. Okay, this is what I memorized from the opening that I learned. But in this way, but when he goes here, you have to adapt to your opponent, to your opponent's moves. So I went bishop e7. So if he takes, I can take with the bishop, and my pawn structure is amazing. I'm adding pressure on this pawn. Everything is nice. And he decides to make a developing move. He developed his knight. So I finally have the chance to castle my king, run away from this pin, and that's it. Now, if he wants to take, he can take. We don't care. We can take back, right? Now he decided to take, and we take. All good. He decided to, now develop his knight. Now we enter the we finished from the opening phase. We have to go for the middle game. Now in the middle game, most of you do a lot of mistakes and blunder your pieces and blunder your pawns. And the way to stop doing that is by making reasonable moves. Would you please tell me what is the most reasonable move in this position for black? Well, if you decided to move the knight here, it might be good, but he can just trade the bishops, plant his knight, not plant his knight there. He can just move his queen somewhere else, somewhere else, attacks your knight, and then plant his knight there forever. So it's a positional mistake, okay, by allowing the trade of the bishops and putting his knight there. So we are not supposed to allow that. And now, the best move that I decided to do is queen b6, which is the best move in this position. Now, why did I decide to do that? Well, first of all, I'm developing my queen. This is number one. Number two, I'm connecting the rooks. This is really great. Number three, if he ever moved his knight, I can take this free pawn. So, see? This is how you are supposed to play the middle game. Make improving moves of your pieces, okay? Now he decides just to solidify the center, and that's very, very okay, very nice from my opponent. Now I decided to attack the bishop away, but he decided to, I want to maintain this pin. And a very bad mistake most of the people do when facing this kind of pin, they go all in and they go g5. Now this is very weakening. This pawn is really, really weak, and your king is very weak. So you're going to be get mated. Maybe he moving his king and start pushing with a pawn, putting the rook there, and adding pressure on your king. This is one of the ways. So I decided, not to care, and I decided to go a5. Now, why this move a5? Why I did not go for this? I already told you this. Okay, I cannot move my knight because I lose the bishop. I cannot move my bishop because he can go bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and my pawn is hanging as well, and I lost the pawn. So this is why I cannot move this or this or this or this or this or the rook. I mean, even if I move the rook here or here or here, it doesn't make any sense. What am I doing? So it's not really a developing move. It's just a waste of time. It's just a move. So don't make only moves. Make developing moves in the middle game. So I decided to push a5 with the idea of going a4. And when he wants to go here, I can just kick away the knight. Then I can take his kick away the bishop. He goes here. Then I decide to take the knight. He takes back. I take here, and everything's fine. So he took my knight. I took back with the bishop, and he decided to go knight c5. He was thinking that now I have the best position ever. He's threatening to go for this fork on knight d7, forking the queen and the rook, and the bishop as well. So many of you would like to blunder and go for the pawn and think that it's okay, but it's not okay, because after queen takes on b2, you have to calculate what my opponent is threatening. My opponent is threatening knight d7. The rook is hanging, and when I move my rook, he can go knight takes bishop, pawn takes, and then queen takes. I lost the pawn, and soon I'm going to lose the second pawn. So this is very bad. This is how you are supposed to calculate in the middle game. So what I decided to do, to go rook d8. Rook d8, I want to stop this fork and forever stopping the knight for going d7. Okay? Now he makes a random move, and I decided to go back with the bishop. Now, why I decided to go back with the bishop and not go for like g5, or moving my king, or moving the pawn, or moving the rook, or something else? Why I decided to go back with the bishop? Well, because there is it's not a tactic, but it's a simple calculation step. If I go back here and he decided to do any other move, I go bishop takes knight, pawn takes, queen takes, and I won a pawn, right? So this is very good for me. And if he moved his knight somewhere else, like here or here or here, I can add some pressure on that pawn on b2. This is the idea. So he decided to go knight a4. Now, is this a threatening move? Yes, my queen is under attack. Now, I have a lot of options here. I can go here for, offer a queen trade. I can go back to queen a7. I can go here. I can go here. I have a lot of options to go. I can even go here, queen b5. So what is the best move out of all of this? Can you guess? Well, also this as well. The best move is to go queen b5. Now, why queen b5? I calculated this. The knight is hanging, and the queen is hanging. So if you decided to, move your queen, you lose the knight. And the knight cannot be moved because he loses the queen, right? So this is kind of a forcing move. And he decided to take my queen. Now, the thing that I calculated, and I went for this variation, that I saw that after c takes on b5, I have an advantage, really big advantage, because the knight can now retreat back to safety. And if the knight went to b6, can you find the best move? Yes, good job. Rook b8. Rook b8 traps the knight. The knight cannot go back anywhere, cannot take, cannot go here, or here, so the knight will be taking. And I calculated that if knight on c5, I can go bishop take, pawn take, and then target that pawn. This was my idea. And he went exactly for that because this was a blunder, so he decided to go here. I took, and he take back, and I went rook c8. Rook c8, we are now entering the endgame, and this is a weakness, and also this is a weakness, but I cannot reach this. I cannot reach this weakness. Sorry, English is my second language. Okay, so this is a weakness. Also, this is a weakness. So we are targeting this one. He decided to go b4, defending the weakness, while also defending this weakness as well. I decided to take, and he took back. Now, the thing that I calculated this in the end game for this variation, I decided to go rook a4. Now the idea of going rook a4 is to attack this weakness, right? And I calculated before even doing that move. I calculated. I did not see, oh, a weakness, let's go here. No, because how can he defend? He can defend with a pawn, right? And what I calculated, that I can go rook a8 after he defends this pawn. Now there's a pawn that is extremely weak and attacked by two rooks and only one rook defending. And he cannot participate. This rook cannot participate and defends magically this pawn. So if he went here, he's going to give me a target. And he blundered and he went for this. It's not really a blunder, it's a positional mistake. And I decided to go for my plan, rook a8. And now my opponent counterattacks. Like for this move, rook c1, what it's threatening, that's to go c6, c7, and threatening to make a queen. Now, here you have to calculate, like really calculate. Is this a big threat? Huh? Well, let's see. If I take here, and he pushed. I can take this rook, he takes, I take with check, the king moves away, then I can go here or go back, all the way back, to stop the promotion of this pawn. So, here, pushing, it's a really bad move. Okay, let's calculate another variation. Rook takes on a3, rook takes on a3, rook takes on a3, then he pushes. Can I stop the pawn? Well, I can go rook a8 back, but he can push his pawn again. Now I have to make a blockade and go rook c8. Now the pawn cannot move, and if he moved his rook somewhere else, I can take the free pawn. So now I decided to go for this variation, and I decided to take. He took my rook, I take back, and he pushed his pawn exactly the way that I imagined he's going to go for this endgame. I went back, rook a8. Rook a8, it stops the promotion of the pawn. He goes here. Now, it's a really crucial move not to move the king or any pawn, because he can make a queen. Rook takes, and the rook can go here, take this pawn, and promote this pawn. So this is very bad. So we have to go rook c8, and now we have to use the king to add two attackers to one pawn, take it, exchange with the rooks, and go for the weakness with the king. This is the main theme in the endgame. Identify in the endgame potential weaknesses and go for them. He decided to move his king. Now the kings are really important in the endgame. So he decided to move his king, and I decided to go rook d6. Now I have two options, either king d7 or king d6. But why I went king d6? Can you answer my question? King d6. When he goes king d4, trying to get closer to my position, I have this e5 check. Now the king is forced back and cannot participate, and my center is mine. This is my center. So, and this way he can go here, and I cannot have this check because he can just take it or take this pawn. So this is really bad. This is why I went king d6. And he decided to go here. At least if I take this pawn, he can take this pawn. So I decided, you know what, let's go for it. And now I decided to push my pawns, try to figure out a way to trade the rook and go for the pawn, and that's it. He gave me a check. Now, I can move away or I can block. If I block, let's calculate. Rook takes c6, king takes c6, king here, and I can go king there. And he cannot stop this pawn. And if he tried to go for the pawns, I can take this one and he's going to lose. So it's a bad move for him to trade. He went rook b7. Rook b7 attacking this pawn. If I defended this pawn, what can he do? He can take this pawn. So this is very bad. And I don't want to go king e6 and moving away from this pawn because I want to take it. Okay? So I decided to repeat to give a check first. The king moves, and then I repeat the move and go rook c7. And if you take, I can make a way to get the third pawn and push my pawn. This is the main theme. He decided to give me another check. I moved my king because I don't want to go for a draw and keep repeating moves. Okay? Now he went here, and I decided to go f5. Now, the best move in this position is not going f5, is by going d4. d4, pushing the king away, moving the king to d5, c5, and attacking the rook. The rook moves away, you can take this free pawn, and you are completely winning in this endgame. So, I missed that, but it's okay. He tried to go for takes, and try to make something with the king to attack my pawn. So the most important move is to identify the threat. What is the threat? Let's calculate. Rook takes c6, b takes c6, okay? And I go back with the king. He goes here. I take. He stops this anti-pawn movement. And when it's no more moves for the pawns, I have to move my king. And when I move my king, I lose this pawn. So I decided to give him a check first, defended by my king. And now the king cannot enter the center. Now I can trade the rooks and go for the pawn. And now it's really simple. Now in here, it's not really a good idea to go for this en passant and leaving this weak pawn. It's a good pawn, but it has to be supported by another pawn in order to promote, okay? So this is the most important one. Now we go here for this variation g4. G4, we cannot take and weaken this pawn, so the best move is to go, let's just defend, okay? Now the king moves. Now, the mistake in this position is to go e3 thinking that you're making a really great move, but it's not, because the king can hide here on d3. You cannot push this one, you cannot push this one. And even if the king moved here, the king cannot enter the position because the king can take this pawn, okay? So the best move is to move your king. Moving the king, you have to go on c4 in this position and blocking this square so that when you give a check, the king cannot hide here. This is the main thing. The king moved away, I moved my king, and now I gave a check, and now I started pushing my pawns. Now, the thing is, after going here, it's bad. It's really bad because I cannot, if I give this check, he can take, and he can, I can go here and promote, but it's better to push your pawns in a safe way. So this pawn is protected by this pawn, so it's fine. The king moves away. I cannot go here and lose this pawn, so I decided to move my king. Takes, and I decided to give this check. It did not take, I don't know why. And I made a queen, made another queen, and this is very easy for anyone to win this. Now I just want to show you the game review of this, and look at that. For the opening accuracy, I'm going to show you the opening right from the start. e4. The opening accuracy is 97.7 for me. 97.7, and my opponent 97.5. The thing is, we both made reasonable book moves, okay? I did not blunder anything in the opening, neither my opponent, and we only made reasonable moves. I'm developing my bishop. I want to, now I developed the bishop, I want a castle, I wanted to attack the bishop, I want him to take, and go for the weakness, maybe with queen b6 to attack this pawn. This is what you're supposed to do. In the opening, just make reasonable developing moves. It's not really that hard. Now he decided to take, and that's it. Now I've shown you the entire game for you just to understand this principle. In the opening, always memorize the book moves and play the book moves, and that's it. Don't go for funky openings or trappy openings and stuff. Second, in the middle game, don't make random moves like this move or this move or this move or this. Now this was the best move that we talked about. Why? Because here, and if he did any other move, he loses a pawn. We take the knight, and now we win the pawn. This is how to play the middle game. Identify potential weaknesses, go for the weakness, and win the game. This is how you are supposed to play. Now, and for the end game, just make sure you have a solid pawn structure. Look at this pawn structure. It's really nice. Therefore, if I tried to, trade everything and make a point, a pawn break, I can have at least one pusher, and I can make a queen if I traded everything. This is how I play chess. This is how I improved my chess from 940 to 1800. This is not my real rating. This is my blitz rating. My rabbit rating is 1803, and I hope that this video was very informative for you guys. And that's it. Tell me your opinion in the comments.